Religion has turned to law, particularly in the United States, which has strict constitutional separation of church and state. In the United States, religious advocates continuously challenge legal separation, as we shall see in our next lecture on evolution versus creationism. Court battles are well funded by theist organizations, forcing secular groups to spend time and money to combat religious falsehoods and often illegal tactics. I do not see how anyone can deny that religion continues to wage war on science despite the denials of its advocates. Fortunately, religion is losing ground on all fronts. Let us remember that fact when we suffer defeat in a few battles. In the long run, we secular advocates are winning the war. Science has slowly seized hegemony from religion. The forces of darkness, superstition, and obfuscation are being dispelled by sound science, reason, and common sense. Brave and brilliant people have suffered and died for this outcome. Let us make sure that our progress continues. Thank you for your attention to this long lecture. I am looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Long live science.
Hooray.
Here, here.
Good.
Well, Norm's been taking
Norm's
thousands of notes.
got
He's having a
pages
ball.
Pages.
Well, I have comments, but I want to ask questions so I don't try and, give another lecture. Why isn't Copernicus given more credit, and why didn't he get persecuted for his theory?
People didn't pay much attention to it.
Was he, where was he from?
Hey, I read it when I think he was one of the northern
He
countries.
was northern,
Yeah, like-
So it always struck me as odd why Galileo sort of took the hit. For him, it was not
The
Galileo's.
times were right. If you recall, that's when atomism and all these ideas were coming in.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
Lucretius's manuscript was recirculating.
yeah, that was recirculating. People
But
were
that's not
starting-
what inspired Copernicus.
No, that was much earlier. But see, he was writing earlier. But see, everything was heating up about the time of Galileo.
When you say heating up, you mean a backlash?
Yeah,
against-
it was. They were scared. They
Atomism.
were upset with Lutheranism. They were Protestantism. They were upset with this 30 Years War. They wanted to ally themselves. Italy wanted to ally themselves with Spain, and there were all these new ideas circulating. Lucretius's atomism from the Epicureans and other Democritus, other Greek thinkers. There were a lot of ideas, and there were a lot of people who were very stubborn. I mean, Bruno was put to death because he was so, stubborn. And in a way, Galileo got in trouble because of his stubbornness also.
So Copernicus, at that time, they just didn't really care much?
No, not until Galileo started to make a point of it. That's exactly when they withdrew it and said that they withdrew it for corrections.
Yeah.
I find that very interesting. Nobody cared very much. See, that was the thing that I read when I was reading these histories of science, that there were several ideas about, the universe and the revolution of the stars and what have you. So actually the Copernican one just didn't seem very likely. It's like we're not too sure about multiverses right now or whatever. You know how you're not sure it's a newer theory, and it just didn't make sense to educated people.
So he was taken less seriously than, say, Galileo?
Yeah. And then when Galileo started to make a point of it and saying, look what I saw in the heavens, I mean, remember, and before that there were no telescopes that could prove much. They weren't very usable.
What I'm seeing matches what this guy has said and proven mathematically in his theories, Copernicus.
Yes.
That's what
Yeah.
he's saying.
Yeah, he's saying,
Now,
look,
I have the
Copernicus
measurements.
was right.
I have the observations that go along with this.
What was Galileo's primary observation? It said, it's gotta be the Earth that's moving.
Just what I was reading. He noticed that like the moon was like had different phases, and then Venus. You know what I was reading?
And Venus also had different phases.
Yeah, and from those things could be obviously inferred. I don't think anybody could take it any other way that knew astronomy and calculations. But
Something's moving.
yeah, but Copernicanism was not considered like a real viable theory. So I suppose some people thought that Galileo was crazy, and then others thought it was heretical. So you have to remember that. So the Pope was being, half reasonable or a quarter reasonable when he just told them to include it with other make sure you discuss it with other ideas. So Galileo was, poking at them too. I mean, you have to remember that, but
And was the whole objection because of the Old Testament verse that said the sun stood still for Joshua? Is that
it
the whole
helped. I mean, I
objection?
don't think some people took that too seriously, but yeah, I mean, people just thought that those things were correct.
So, but other than that, why would it be heresy that if the earth moved around?
Well,
the
because
sun,
that we wouldn't be that important then.
it'd be less important?
Yeah, God created
to
us
God.
all specially, this earth and everything.
Creation.
Everything's
There's a lot of
pointed,
people
everything's
who's-
pointed toward the earth.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, it just reduces, man's importance. And then does it make, well, then why did God make it that way? See, it starts
As soon as
to
you have other planets,
throw doubts.
you've got the possibility of other people.
Well, I don't think that's what was on Galileo's mind, though, was it? I mean,
No,
he didn't
no, I don't
say
think
there
he was
other
worried about
people.
that.
No, but that thought crosses, if you have more than one world, oops,
Yeah.
you got a problem, because this is the only world.
He was significantly in disagreement, with the church. It's very interesting, the new documents that emerged about, atomism from the Vatican's, documents on the Inquisition. And that was a big issue, and they kind of, shoved it under the carpet. So, we've just been finding it out since they opened these up the last 30, 40 years.
But also, there was this formal pardon that was issued.
Yeah, they finally
1980,
did.
1980s.
Yeah. They
1980?
finally pardoned him,
And
yeah.
at the time, one of the church public relations priests, he said, well, we had to be sure that Galileo was right.
Yeah.
That's why we put him on the Inquisition.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
had to make sure he was right.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
as the
actually,
hubris.
back then, actually, there was some doubt whether this theory was right. I mean, I will give the church that much, but it was insane.
Yeah. Because the Vatican, they did have an astronomer, and they may still have an official Vatican astronomer.
That,
Did you know that?
I didn't know that,
I believe they do.
Yeah, so there is some interest, in astronomy, I guess, on their part.
Well, the Jesuits, at least, I think still, I mean, they had a lot of, unfortunately, they also kind of, did a little bit with index of books and what have you, but, they were also formidable scholars. They educated a lot of heretics, people that turned into heresy.
But at this time of Pope Urban, were they also trying to strike out astrology as well? Were they trying to?
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They were trying to strike out anything that was like not official church doctrine. And I think, I don't know if I've given that lecture yet, that actually that retarded the fact, trying to wipe out magic and alchemy retarded science again,
Mhm.
because a lot of that grew into science.
Right, a lot of the
So they were
astronomers.
screwed up on all sides. They didn't want anything that interfered with their official, doctrine, what they had laid on. But of course, the fact is that doctrine evolved over centuries. And I know that my family wasn't Catholic, and they were mainly secular. My father was atheist, and my mother was agnostic. But I did go to a Catholic girls' school, which was taught by Dominicans, and it was a very, very good school. But we always were given the impression that all these things had been laid down from almost the beginning.
What things?
All these doctrines, the Trinity, the cult of the Virgin, So we were kept in ignorance of theology, really, or church history.
Anyway, you used the word atheology a couple of times. I want to make sure I understand what that means. What is atheology?
It's like the study of atheism, or the
But
philosophy of atheism.
From an
Of course,
atheist perspective, or
it's not a philosophy, so I shouldn't say that.
so would that be from an atheist
Yeah,
perspective?
yeah,
or-
people use it, like Michael Martin uses it. I mean, really
Yeah.
good atheists, really a solid intellectual atheist use that expression.
Yeah.
But I don't see it used very often, among
No, I don't,
yeah.
and I'm wondering whether, you know, our phrase, well, what I've used anyway, is atheist studies. What's going to be the dominant label for this field?
I think it's more clear if we say atheist studies.
Yeah.
But I noticed, didn't that recent book, I think, isn't John Shook going to be taking up atheology? I think, wasn't it mentioned there? So I'd like to get his book because I'd be interested in what he has to say about it. He spoke here, Ted,
Oh, okay.
a few years ago. So did Victor Stenger,
Yeah.
whom I quote a lot, the physicist. And it was great. We got
He was
a
at-
chance
was
to
he
have
at
dinner
Oakland?
with him.
Yeah, he was at Oakland.
Yeah, he was at Oakland, yeah.
But there was one course where I thought maybe you were using it to describe what a theologian might
Mark
study.
C. Taylor is calling it that, atheology.
What we would call atheist studies.
Yeah, except that it's like he's trying to like get into the middle of, you know, atheism and theology and trying to harmonize them in some
Yeah.
like negative mystical way that God is, again, is described as what he is not.
But that's why I'm wondering, is that what, this middle ground, this apologetics, is that what he's trying to call atheology?
Yeah, the expression or the word is not precise.
That's what I'm wondering.
Of late,
because it
yeah,
sounds
that's
too
why I
close
like
to-
atheist studies better, but
Yeah.
I really wish we could use atheology just for, you know, atheists, you know, as to describe our
Well,
our
it's a
investigations.
little bit more archaic, you know, to say theology or to say a theology than to say atheist studies. Wouldn't that be more
Well,
modern? You say
Mark C.
women's-
Taylor is using it with that slash of the postmodernist Jews, you know, A with a slash theology. That's a favorite, you know,
Okay.
yeah.
But you think of women's studies, you don't say,
Yeah.
you know, histology.
Or black studies or
Well,
gay
there's
studies.
history.
Yeah.
History is that what they call it?
Yeah, herstory, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, herstory, yeah, they do.
Maybe it just sounds so good, they want to use it, but, okay, it's just something to think about and talk about some more, because we're gonna hear, I think, both of those terms more.
I'll be interested when Shook's book comes out, you know, I think it's coming out, it's forthcoming, and I'm gonna get it. You know, really just to explore this kind of term and thinking,
Yeah,
and how he defines it. Because he's been at that kind of thing for years now, so.
you know, my questions. So what I have heard often is that each time that the religious realm shrinks in deference to the science realm, which is gaining, the religion says, well, this is now our realm.
Yeah,
This is all we really can speak about or can address. Whereas before, you know, they would say the earth is stationary.
yeah.
They wouldn't say that today, but.
There's still actually a
it's
few flat
shrinking-
earthers around.
Yeah, but it's a shrinking realm, so with each
Yeah.
new scientific discovery that is decisive, they'll say, oh, well, that was never our real concern anyway.
Right.
Our concern is, you know,
It's
just
such and
this.
such, yeah.
But what they're really acknowledging is this shrinking realm, this shrinking religious realm.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we're not concerned with this life, it's the next life we're
Yeah.
concerned with. I think is that response to this science can't really speak of the next world, right?
Right.
But can speak of, you know, this world and almost everything in it. So I've noticed that's how the apologists also handle these debates about saying, oh, well, that was not really what we were really concerned with
Right.
anyway, about whether the earth moved or not.
Well, you know, Ron Aronson, we also heard him speak, and he wrote a book on being an atheist, even though that's not his field. And when he gave a talk, I think it was Rochester? I can't remember now, Jim. Anyway, he was saying during the discussion period that, you know, they had been, you know, the doors had been, you know, they were relegated to this room and that room, and now they were like, you know, getting toward the back. And, you know, he thought that eventually, you know, but it's hard, you know, that we would get rid of them, but it's hard. I mean, you notice how people carried on about, in Moore, I heard, in the media plays up to that. Some man went on and on and on about how their faith was being tested. Oh, wow, okay, great, you know. Yeah, and this is just like Job, you know. So he had elevated, you know, like being flattened with this, you know, as everything destroyed with, you know, a Job-like thing, and, you know, God's right there testing you. So the implication, he didn't say it, but the implication was you better not complain too much. You know, you better like just pick up and fix things and shut up, you know, because this is God's test.
Yeah.
See, he's not giving up God.
But Mary, there was a CNN story about a mother who was also standing in front of the ruins of her house, and Wolf Blitzer, I think that's
Yeah,
his
Oh,
it
name,
was.
cool.
said, aren't you thankful to God that
Oh, good, good.
you're still alive? And she very reluctantly, and actually I think much too shyly, said, well, actually I'm an atheist.
Oh, did she? I didn't
Yeah.
see
She
that.
had
Oh, that's so
nerves.
cool. I didn't
Yeah.
see that.
So, and that got
I
played.
wish you
That was
guys had
CNN.
sent me something on that.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, it's
But-
easy to find. It's Wolf Blitzer, you know, with
But-
the
but what
recent
was-
disaster in Oklahoma, and just
Oh, how
Wolf
funny.
Blitzer, Atheist, Oklahoma should find
Oh
it.
my God, how
Oh, my
funny.
goodness.
But
That's
Mary-
terrific.
Yeah, yeah, and she said something, you know, politically correct too, along the lines of, you know, she doesn't blame anybody who thanks the Lord for them surviving the
Well, she
the
has
horrific
to,
thing that the Lord
she
brought
has
on.
to
but-
in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I'm amazed she had the guts to say she was an atheist.
But didn't you
Yeah.
feel like she was almost apologizing to him for being an atheist?
You almost have to
I
because
want to watch it again now.
Yeah.
I want to watch
they
it.
I felt
tear into
disappointed,
you, you
but-
know, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
You know, she could have been a little bit more, well, look around you. You see God anywhere? It was just rubble
Yeah.
Well, I'm
everywhere.
glad that she contradicted him. You know,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
so
right.
many
Yeah,
of
she-
those people,
Yeah.
they do it every time that there's a flood or a disaster.
Yeah.
The media. Oh, I'm amazed that you know that
Yeah.
came up and they played
Yeah,
it.
and apparently Wolf did it a few years ago with a different disaster, and the similar thing.
No,
happened.
I wonder if you don't think they set that
Yeah.
up, do you?
I don't think so. I think he's just a jackass.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he is a bit of a jackass for sure.
But, you know, these public, very unfortunate natural disasters, it's actually an opportunity for atheists.
yeah, it is.
We could get an
Yeah.
atheist on camera who was not apologetic and say, if you believe in God right now, you gotta be pretty stupid.
Yeah,
Look around you, and you think somebody's testing a 4-year-old because he got buried in the
Well,
rubble?
that's it. I mean, it's
No.
insane.
That's his foot sticking out over there.
Yeah. So that's pretty sick for them to say things like that. It's
They do,
God
though.
testing.
They do. I mean, you know, it's like,
At best, they could say, well, God is not involved in these sort of things. Which
yeah,
is
yeah.
more
This
modern.
is natural evil in the world, or whatever, like Platinga says. You know, and, you
Yeah,
know.
the best of all possible.
Yeah, it's the best of all possible. Yeah, I don't know. I don't quite understand. You know why they
Is this
claimed
really
it.
the blessing that you wanted?
Yes,
Your destruction?
that's what that man said. We're being tested, and you know, the implication was very strong, and it really makes me mad because they go on about it, and then they
And they
talk
get the
about.
play.
I
They
can't
get
remember
play.
the
They get
plane.
the airtime.
The plane crash. I think it was here in Detroit a long time ago.
Yes.
I can't remember that.
The one on the hill.
One
Like
little girl
255.
survived.
Yeah, Cecilia Sheehan.
Yeah, okay, and then they asked her just recently, and she didn't say anything about God. She didn't say she was an atheist, but she said that she thought she was just lucky, you know, and she was just at the right place at the
Yeah.
right time in the plane. I said, well, hallelujah, because they usually say that God had a plan for me and blah and blah. Of course, a lot of that is survivor guilt from what I've heard. You know, like the guys that
You
survived.
have to excuse that you're still here.
Yeah, yeah. You know, like the guys in the war that their buddies got killed around them or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, God must have had a plan for you, and for me. And I think, like, what plan?
The
you know?
shrapnel got the
Yeah.
guy next to me.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
And there were
you know.
many
Yeah.
cases like
And they
that
say
where
that
the
that's
fellow was
survivor
blown
guilt,
away.
trying to deal with it. Well, then,
Sure.
Yes.
you know, God worked it out that way, and it's not my fault for still being alive when all my friends
Yeah.
are dead. You know, I can see that in a way.
Yeah.
I can see that. I could see that probably in a big plane crash too, but she didn't say that. She said she was just lucky, fortunate.
Yeah.
I said, hallelujah, you know.
You mentioned a lot about how the apologists try to reconcile, you know, the science and religion and say, oh, well, we can coexist because we're in either a different realm or we're actually saying the same things that you're saying, you know, we just didn't know it, that God really intended, you know, what we're now finding in science. But how do you deal with the people who say, well, you science people, just leave us alone and we'll leave you alone. We won't criticize science or try and compete with science, but you should leave us alone into our own little, you know, theology of this life after death, and that there's this invisible God that we can pray to give us comfort and all this. So how do you answer that when they try to put out a hand of peace and say, I don't want your science to, why should your science interfere with my religion, my religious belief? How would you respond to that?
I don't have any response. I mean, if they want to continue in that, sick way of thinking or, irrational way of thinking, I mean,
Yeah.
what are we to
'Cause-
do? We can't force them to think rationally.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is that there's religion which might openly attack science.
Yeah, I know what you
The
mean.
religious
But there's
beliefs, but
some
there's
that
the
is
personal
not.
beliefs. These people who carry around personal beliefs, they say, well, don't criticize my personal relationship with God,
Yeah.
because I'm not attacking your science.
Right,
Why
yeah.
are you attacking my private prayer that I have with God?
Well, see, I mean, you can only then fall back once again on reason, and if they're having a private, conversation with God, it's not really reasonable. And what do you do? I just don't argue.
No,
I'm
but-
sorry,
no,
I know everybody will think I'm a
Where's
bad
the argument?
atheist.
There is no argument.
Well, maybe there
That's
is.
your personal point of view, and that's fine.
But it's not
If you can live
scientific.
with, if you can live with that, if you're happy with it,
Yeah,
that's
but they
that's
don't
great.
care about science, and they'll tell you that, We had somebody that came to a
Holy
discussion
cow.
group that we had, that, said that, what had science done?
Done for me.
For him or his life.
While
Well,
he's answering his cell
Well,
phone.
do you drive a car? Do you take medicine? Blah, blah,
You
blah,
just
et
fly in an
cetera.
airplane.
Yeah, fly an airplane. I mean, it was like, and, he was not an unintelligent person at all. He was a very intelligent person.
Well, they try
What
to,
do you do with somebody like that, All you can say is like, do you drive a car, do you take medicine?
Mhm.
Do you think, and eventually it'll come down to that science has not done anything for me, really.
And they'll turn right around and just say the same thing again.
What has science done for my life? I think what they mean, their life. their
Oh,
policy.
that's worse yet.
Yeah, I know.
Well-
I don't know how to combat that. I know other atheists wanna, get in the ring there and spar it out, but.
That's like a corporate executive saying, well, what has the government done for me?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we
This
don't
is
know
off
about all
topic,
the
too.
things
Yeah,
that the
exactly.
Property rights.
Yeah,
government welfare.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
Exactly.
well, my father, may he rest in peace.
Shame on you.
What he said is, because he knew I was interested in science from a very young age, and he was a rabbi, so he said, the way he would put it, he said, science doesn't have all the answers. Science doesn't have all the answers, don't you? You know it. Instead of saying, we know better, or we have a different answer, he tried to be maybe the God of the gaps and say,
Exactly.
it doesn't have all the answers.
Exactly.
But he was talking about like people dying of cancer. You say, you see, science doesn't have all the answers. You see, as if
Yes,
somehow
I do. Yeah. Yes, I
God wins, because cancer
because
kills.
cancer's
Yeah.
not curable or yet, but as long as it's not curable, it's sort of in his mind, was a black spot on science. That science-
Exactly.
It's also a black spot on religion because the
Yeah.
power of your prayer is not saving you.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, Judaism couldn't say.
But sometimes it saves, see, this is it, God decides,
Yeah.
and sometimes he decides, and we can't say what his plan is.
Because you're being
Oh.
presumptuous that you know how
Yeah.
God works.
He
So
works
he-
in mysterious ways.
He liked the mystery. I think he really enjoyed the mystery of it.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
He wanted to
Oh, yeah.
preserve mystery. He didn't want science to take that away from him.
I've had at least 3 Catholics tell me that they don't really like the Mass anymore since they put it in English.
Yes.
Because they
Yes.
didn't understand the Latin, and I guess they didn't read their.
My
you
mother
know-
hated it.
Yeah, oh yeah, your mother hated it. That's
in
right.
English, yeah.
Yeah, and the mystery was
Sure.
out of it. It's all of a sudden, what, is this what they're saying, or does that suck?
Yeah, right. Just like
Yeah.
there's a song you like, then you read the lyrics, and you're like, that's
Yeah.
garbage, or
Oh,
that's
yeah,
disagreeable
what does
to
that
me.
suck? Yeah, yeah, exactly. So a lot of it is a mystery, and they've said
Yeah.
that they and they're very angry with the church, some of them, because now they've kind of stopped being angry. They've, I think, gone away from it, but they're very angry at, all of a sudden St. Christopher isn't a saint, he didn't exist, and all these things, and they're going, they must have known that, like, see, they figured it out. Why did they tell us that,
But this bridge, for example, that collapsed in Seattle,
Yeah.
the same sort of thing is that you see science is flawed,
Yeah.
even though that's not
So
really
you
science.
say that's, aha, then
You
it's.
see, we can't rely on science,
Yeah.
because look what happened, all these
Yeah.
man-made problems happen because of science, is some of this backlash, and I know my father had that also, that hostility towards technology, that it was not reliable and so on. That's why I went on to become a computer programmer. So, it's funny, I just realized that, that's kind of an irony, that he was angry almost at technology for not being
Oh.
100% reliable, so.
Mhm.
But you can see that playing out in the world where there is this backlash and say, look at we can't trust the food we eat,
Yeah.
we can't trust the doctors, of course, I'm
Yeah.
glad you
Well,
mentioned
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But we can't trust these scientists because they're being paid off by others.
Yeah, which is partially true, I mean,
There's a
Absolutely.
whole
but you can't
backlash.
discard all of science, that's
No.
the trouble, they wanna do that.
Yeah, so they put these straw man arguments up and say,
Yeah.
you see, the bridge collapse, there's a representation of our flawed science.
Yes.
Well, where was God to prevent it?
Yeah,
Where were
but
the
you
prayers,
see, it
I'm
was
going,
man-
crossing this bridge, please get me to the other side?
But it's a man-made structure, so.
Oh,
we
but
can-
God runs the world.
Yeah,
That was made by capitalists, and it wasn't maintained by capitalists.
Yeah.
It's not God, it's capitalists.
yeah, it's not science, it's engineering. and it-
Yeah, exactly,
Must have
it's
kept up.
engineering, yeah.
Yeah, so I think people don't understand that the execution of these things is inherently flawed, there's always bugs in them.
Yeah, but see, God is perfect.
Yeah, but that's the attraction, right?
Yeah.
Is that, as long as I can go back to this imaginary God,
Yeah.
I can imagine that there's some perfection to be had
Yes.
somewhere.
Like the perfect mountain, except when you're going on the pathway on the mountain and there's a landslide.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. But it is a fantasy.
The
I think.
perfection exists elsewhere.
Elsewhere.
Yeah.
But they don't want to give that idea
Yeah,
up.
no.
Somewhere in the universe, there's perfection, it isn't
Well,
heaven.
think about it, I mean, things are so imperfect, and, people, we as people are so imperfect. And, I can see why people just seek that kind of comfort.
Mhm.
Like I've, talked about in some of my earlier lectures about, people seeking a sense of justice, one of the psychological reasons. Where the bad are punished and the good are rewarded, I mean,
That's another reason.
yeah, people would, besides fearing death and all the other reasons, but
Yeah.
that sense of justice, I've noticed, it is in most of the successful religions, even in the Eastern ones, with karma.
That the bad must be punished.
Yeah, I mean, you get it, I mean, you come back as a clay
But-
pot in the worst
Yeah,
case
right.
scenario, or
Which tends to serve the purposes of the state.
Yes, it does. It perpetuates the state
Yes.
because, if you're like a good person, et cetera, and I've noticed, when I went on some of the Eastern sites, they even say like, this is your big chance to make your breakthrough, to become, because, if you're reincarnated as like a lower form, it may take centuries to get back to a human form. I think that's
How
pretty.
much money do they want?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just your big chance to get enlightened. I don't think they wanted any money, but get yourself together and get enlightened and get yourself into a higher level of humanness, as it were, or else, it may be centuries before you're
another
reborn as a
chance.
human again.
To try again.
Yeah,
Be a snail.
yeah, I mean, you're gonna be a snail,
I wish you'd cover the rise of creationism in the Muslim world.
Oh, boy,
This
that
is a
is such a
big,
tough topic.
It's gonna be a big issue, another clash, a fracture point in Europe, where they're gonna be demanding that creationism is taught in the schools.
Well, it's a
As-
recent development with them. I mean, they always believed
Right.
that
Well,
God started
our
everything, but.
people, the religious people from this country, the creationists from this country, are on a mission to go overseas
They have been
and
doing it.
introduce creationism.
But Jim,
And they've been doing that.
That
but I
Ronald
think a lot of
Numbers
it's
is-
moving west, it's moving from the Middle East and from Turkey. This idea is that you can't insult Islam by teaching.
Oh, you're talking about Islam. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the idea of Christian creationism
No.
moving from this country to Europe.
What's
and
unfortunate,
they're
though,
proselytizing.
what's unfortunate
Creationism.
is that Islam it's of recent years that they started this.
I know,
creationism
that's
job.
why I think it bears mention, is that this
Oh,
is
yeah.
a new
Oh,
development.
yeah.
I mentioned it, I believe a little bit, I know I mentioned it in Atheist Scholar. And I have the references, and I believe that I put it in the lecture. I have to look and see. If not, I'll try to include it. Okay, but I do know Ronald Numbers, also an atheist scholar. He's written a really good book, and he comes from actually like creationist. I can't remember what religion his family was, but he really does some very objective studies, and he talks about the disturbing rise of creationism
Yes.
in Western Europe, and that
Yes.
is really scary because
Yeah.
they were our kind of bastion for secularism.
Of reason. Yeah.
But that's not among all peoples.
No, but he's talking that it's a
That's-
disturbing, trend.
This is from the Muslim immigrants, because
I don't
most
think
of
it's
Europe.
just
No,
them.
sir,
It's
Norm.
also, it's
Listen up
both.
again.
It's both.
There's a group in the United States of America,
Evangelical
an
Christians.
evangelical Christian group, I don't have the name, I'm sorry, but they educate Christian missionaries in creationism
To go to
and
Europe.
send them to Europe
To talk to Christians?
to talk to anybody, Christians,
Yeah.
whoever.
I mean,
So
if you're
they-
talking to a Christian, you'd say,
They
well,
don't know,
just,
to talk to people in public
yeah.
and get it into the education, try to get it into the education system in England, in Europe, Western Europe especially.
It is scary. So I
Oh,
mean,
yes,
it's both
it's a
the
very strong
Muslims,
movement.
the Muslim immigrants, and it's also this Christian movement coming from the United States.
What would be very interesting would be to find out if the missionaries from the creationist movement in the United States have crossed paths with the Muslims.
Oh, they'll probably, that would be
That
interesting.
would be very interesting,
He had- he
and talk to, and share their ideas with some of the imams.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's gonna happen.
And you call it
anytime
Campus
soon.
Crusade.
Yeah, the Campus Crusade.
Well, I worry less about most of the Europeans because they're leaning further and further away from Christianity. I'm not saying that there aren't still Christians in Europe, but if you've already left, if you no longer believe in God, then to try
Yeah.
and make an argument
Yeah,
that,
Mhm.
God created the universe,
Yeah.
it's sort of harder to make.
yeah.
So-
Yeah, that's good, that's
But,
smart.
yeah, we have to be vigilant. We obviously don't
Yeah.
want any creationism in the schools. We'll see where it goes. It'll be
Yeah.
interesting, it's worth watching. And then, thank you for covering the circumcision issue. There's many other medicalization issues that come up. I think that it has actually tried to replace religion in many realms.
That's why I thought it was good
If
to
you-
critique science a little bit in that. Yeah, it has, and it's been wrong. And I mean, they are kind of the arbiter of morals a little bit.
Yeah, the medicine as a priesthood, that you pay a lot of money to
Yeah.
go to this priest
And you listen to.
who's going to tell you something and you're not to question
Yeah.
what he says. You're just supposed to do it,
Yeah,
and it's going to make you feel better, even just to go to him to
Yeah.
hear his advice.
yeah, I know, our doctors have that
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And then you
behavior, and I mean, you can't almost penetrate it.
and you take that to its logical extreme. It's like they're not just priests; they are God. Is that
Yeah,
you
almost.
trust your life, other people who you love, their life, with this person.
Yes.
And if they die, well, he did
Science
all he could.
can't do everything.
Science can't do everything.
Prayer.
But he did all he could, just like God.
They
And he had
encourage
to go.
me, a lot of them, the local MDs, I don't mean at maybe the highest levels, but your local practitioners, your local doc, and they encourage prayer a lot of times.
Yeah.
If you just let them, if you let them take an inch, they'll take a mile, you've got to kind of stop it.
But none of them would allow you to just pray and not take your child to the doctor.
Oh,
or
no,
whatever.
no.
So they want to be.
But they like that little reinforcement, why not some prayer along with, all my other wonderful fine,
And we all know the story of the surgeon who was, people were getting ready to go into surgery, and, a slicing operation, and the surgeon made a practice of saying to the person, just before they're going to the operating room, we should pray together now for the positive outcome of this operation.
That's the surgeon's.
Well, you know, I seldom watch like Good Morning America, but sometimes I do, and I saw that when Robin Roberts was getting that complex thing, she had that rare blood disease. You know, I think she got, I forget what did she get from her sister? I can't remember anyway. But, you know, they had funny things and balloons and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, then they all had the family prayer too, you know, whoever was surviving. And the friends of hers on the media that were like behind the desk were talking about how her dead parents were looking down from heaven, you know. And I'm going, well, you know, I hate to be nasty, but
Thank you, media.
You notice how nobody's real anxious to rejoin their relatives in heaven or anything?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they're looking down and high, thanks, I'm glad you like it. Nobody's in any hurry, though. You notice how Christians, and they take care of their health, a lot of them,
Yeah.
very assiduously.
So if you add the psychiatrist and psychologist to all of this,
Don't even start there with
the
those guys.
substitute priesthood. You go to them for advice.
Oh, yeah.
You trust their advice. You know, they tell you this is the way it should be.
You know what I always say, you know,
And you're done.
if I make mistakes, I'll make my own and I'll be responsible for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need their lousy advice. I've made enough mistakes in my life without, you know, lousy advice, yeah.
But their response is, oh, but it's only for your own good.
Sure,
right?
well,
Just like with
Yeah.
God,
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
loves you even if you don't believe Him.
right,
This patronizing idea that you're still a child,
yeah.
you don't know
Mhm.
what's best for you, even though
Mhm.
you say you do. And then the second area of this that I want to mention is how the religion and the medicine do mix together directly, where you have a religious, and Jim, you mentioned this,
Mhm.
you have a religious doctor who's also like mixing his religion up in his medicine, where you can't really even tell the difference.
Exactly.
So, you know, things like circumcision come up where it sounds like
Mhm.
it's because he's telling you for health reasons, but he happens to be a Jewish doctor.
Yeah.
So you're not sure, is this for health reasons or not?
Yeah,
I'm thinking of maybe some other things like kosher food is supposed to be better for you, kosher meat.
yeah, they
supposed to
still
be
do
clean.
that, they
Yeah,
advertise those hot dogs
It's-
on TV.
Yeah,
and
they're
make it
all over
sound
the
like
place on
they're
television.
not only great tasting, but they must be, you know, I think they say something like, if they're kosher or something, they're bound to be good or something. It's almost
Rising
like they're
to-
healthy, they don't
Yeah.
say it,
Yeah,
but it's clever.
a healthy hot dog,
They're merchandising. it.
full of
Yeah.
cholesterol and fat,
Titrates.
And God, yeah, and nitrates, and God knows
and
what
nitrates
else.
to
Nitrates, yeah.
kick up your chemical system.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get a last shot of coffee.
okay, that's all.
Interesting.
Very interesting, Mary, thank you. This is, I think we need to be more aggressive as scientists and point out that, you know, religion is a threat to scientific understanding, will
Yeah.
always be a threat. There is no, as you said, compatibility, there is no.
There doesn't seem to be, it really, when you get right
But-
down to it.
Yeah, but even atheists don't want to pick a fight. They don't want to criticize religion when it comes to their bad science. I really wish that they
Really?
were more. Maybe I described it poorly, but is that they don't want to go on the offensive, I should say. They wait for the religion to attack, say, an easy target like evolution.
Oh.
But why wait for them? Why not criticize them openly? That they, you know, the idea of this invisible character existing, it's just silliness. Without any evidence, it's contrary to science. And what else do we have in this world except for our science, our understanding?
But I still do not understand how to combat them, other than just keep going ahead with science. And, you know, furthering science and approving it. I mean, I feel that that's what we're doing in our lecture series. We're using rationality and reason and, you know, facts when I give these talks and things, because it doesn't seem to be anyway. Now you know, now if you say anything about it, now they say, well, I accept evolution, you know, but God started it, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, all right, you know, fine, you
Because
know.
that's the gap, that's our knowledge gap, is how did life begin?
Yeah,
It's still a gap,
Yeah.
even though you said life was very easy.
yeah, I mean, I think
Started
that they're
very
very
early.
close, you know. And let's face it, if you imperfectly clone things, if you can clone things, And if you can create in vitro fertilization, you know, and things, I mean, come on, I mean, you know, we're right there, we're knocking at the door.
That would be great in our lifetime, hopefully, to see
Yeah.
life in a test tube.
Yeah.
That would be a Nobel Prize. So,
Except that they better guard the area, because can't you see all the religious coming to destroy it?
try and block it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, the argument like Ron Duco says is, oh, you see, we still can't create life in a test tube. They have everything they've thrown at it to try to
See
create
what an
life.
idiot that guy is? Is
Bob
he still
Duco.
on the radio?
Yeah, Bob Duco,
Oh,
yeah.
God. I have never listened to him once.
Well, you ought to listen to him. I wouldn't say it would be a waste of time to listen to him once. But yeah, he said that you can put all the chemicals you want in one test tube and all the electricity and everything you want perfectly, and there's not a scientist on the planet that can create even a single cell.
And what's he
as
gonna
of
say
today.
when it happens?
Yeah,
He'll
have to
probably be
adjust.
dead,
He'll say,
yeah.
well, but that's only because it's in the laboratory.
I know, they make up things, and no
They keep
matter what you.
moving the tag back.
I know,
a little
no
bit
matter
further.
what you come up with, what scientific discovery, or what logical argument, or whatever, they will not give up, and I think it's because they don't want to. You know, there's some anthropologists, you know, like, oh God, what's his name? Boyer, and others that feel that we're maybe hardwired as kind of byproducts of evolution somehow, this religious thing, and that it's going to be very hard to eliminate.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that scares me. I mean, I hope that they're wrong. You know, but it does sometimes seem as though people like these imaginary things. We heard, when we were walking in Eastland this morning, we heard one lady telling another lady about angels and how when they want to, they can come down to earth. And I was hoping that maybe she was talking about the Wim Wenders film, you know, remember a long time ago?
Oh, yeah,
But
I
no,
hated
it
that
wasn't.
film.
Yeah, I know, I hated that film too.
Okay.
I hated that.
Okay.
And like a lot of young people really got into it. They were going, oh man, like, I never figured, like, oh man, angels, oh man, oh wow. You know,
that's
they
neat.
kept trying to kill you kids, you know?
I remember that.
Oh yeah, I hated
That
that
was black and
film.
white, was it black and white?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I
we're
really
talking-
hated that film.
probably
I
the
mean,
same
I
show.
hated it with a passion.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Deborah liked that film.
oh my
She's
God.
agnostic.
Ex-wife. I mean, but so many people loved it.
Yeah, yes, sure.
I think I've always hated Wim Wenders since.
Well, only as a fantasy. I mean, I think it could work as a metaphor, as a kind of a fantasy.
That lady that was talking
That's
to
not
the
what
other
they were
one
talking
today
about.
was not talking about as any metaphor. She's
Oh,
like explaining to the other one that they could come to Earth when they wanted.
One more thing I wanted to say
Oh,
about
please.
the science and religion thing is, I think soon they will detect single cell life, say on, if not Mars,
Yeah.
well, then on one of the moons.
They
of
shall.
Yeah.
Saturn or Jupiter. Probably that's much more likely because there's water there.
Yeah, they shall.
On these moons. And I'm already hearing that, you know, what the Vatican might reply to that is, well, of course, you know, God is everywhere.
Everywhere,
So
yeah.
of course, instead of what you would like them to say, oh, shoot, you know, I guess we're gonna have to revise our theology.
Never.
They're not gonna say that, are they? They're
Never.
gonna say,
No, never.
well, of course there's life on other
God
planets.
reveals his presence.
Oh, have
In
you
the
heard them?
universe.
A lot of them, they're debating that whether Jesus had to be crucified on all the other planets where there's life.
What was their answer?
Well, they don't know yet, I guess. I guess it's like up for grabs. I mean, maybe it would be a
That
little
ain't
bit
changed, is it?
different on this planet or
Yeah.
that planet. But that there's actually a debate like that.
Well,
Did
so-
Jesus have to be crucified? Like, poor Jesus, you know.
It's a lot of planets.
That's a lot.
Crucified, crucified, crucified. What a life.
And what if there's more than one?
And there'll be a,
Yeah,
And there'll be a-
more than one universe.
right, it's begging for a postmodern take on it.
Exactly.
But you could see that they probably have some kind of position paper already drafted.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's-
That's,
Oh, yeah.
It's like the obituary for the
Yeah, yeah, they
elderly
got it ready.
celebrity.
They got it ready, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, they've
Just
thought
like-
this out ahead of us, yeah.
You know, if we detect signals from another planet that are intelligible, you know.
Well, God did that, yeah.
It could be, yeah, this is God in the universe.
Yeah, I don't think that they're ever going to stop. I mean, I'm hoping that eventually people will just get so tired of it and, you know, but I see a significant amount of people in this country, clinging to faith, but that, I can't remember his name now, that British sociologist, Bruce, he seems to think that, we're about 50 years behind, and it's happening here also, as
It
it's
is.
happened in
It's
Europe.
definitely happening,
Yeah. And he thinks that it won't be like atheist, but indifference. Finally, he's an atheist, but he thinks it'll be kind of an indifference rather than a, active atheism, which kind of is right, because if everybody is no longer religious, you almost don't need a movement,
Right.
an atheist movement. I'm not sure. What do you think
Well,
about
you-
that?
No, I think you need atheist studies.
Studies.
Whether you need, a movement to promote atheism, we don't really even have that today. We have just a bunch of small groups that are, socializing.
Yeah.
But you've
So-
got, on a national level, you have a little bit.
Yeah, I think we could do a lot more with more people. So, no, I foresee it, in my lifetime, there would always be an atheist movement.
Oh, yeah, there has to be, especially in the United States.
At
yeah.
some point, yes, it becomes superfluous, but that's great.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. I mean, yeah.
And when you talk about change, I was thinking about today, when I was programming, is that, when I was born in 1962, a tiny fraction of people made their living programming a computer.
You're right. See that?
Tiny, what would I guess, 20 to 10,000, 20,000
Yeah.
maybe programmers. It was infinitesimal, and now it's such
Yeah.
a large field that what I'm doing today wouldn't have been possible even in 1980. So it's really wonderful how you see the change happen. These professions come into vogue which didn't even exist.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I feel fortunate, very, very lucky, but it's also, it's a sign that we can have rapid change in some areas that will astound us.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thanks again, Mary.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very
everybody.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for paying attention. These lectures
Yeah.
are so long.